أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of My Journey Through Islam. Now today's guest is Tayyib Marshall. Thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I just want to take you back from the beginning of your journey. What was life like growing up as a small Tayyib Marshall?
Well, I grew up in a big family. There was 5 of us. My father was an atheist and my mother was a Catholic. I always felt that things inside our family unit were absolutely fine. But I think with the split inside the family, you could swing either way inside our house. You know, however it suited you. We could either believe in God or we couldn't. Or we didn't believe in God. The one thing that our mum always did was she encouraged us to go to the church. So as many Catholics do, took my Holy Communion, which obviously you prepare, you study for, and there's like study circles, which for me I really enjoyed. At the age of 13, 14, you begin to get confirmed and things like that by the bishop, and you kind of move through.
So your mother was from a religious kind of side? Well,
my mother was more religious than my dad. I wouldn't say she was a devout Catholic or anything like that, but certainly she has an element where she has faith and she has trust in God. So she tried her hardest to give that to us. And I always got from my mum that there's a sense of pride in just saying that she's Catholic, and to give her a sense of identity as well. So I think there's part of us that also wanted to take that on.
It's fantastic. So that's from your mother's side. What about your father's side? What was his background like religiously?
He was just an out-and-out atheist.
Okay.
And he had his opinions and his and that was his truth. So if ever there was discussions of God or faith or going to heaven or anything like that, as a child with inside the house, he'd quite quickly come in and say the end's the end.
And that was his point of view.
And that was his point of view, and we learned to accept our dad's opinion.
But he didn't force that upon anybody else in the family. That was just his view, and your mother had her own.
No, he never forced anything like that. It was just his opinion.
It's fantastic. So coming back to you growing up, you had the religious side to a certain extent from your mother's side, and then your father's side as well, which was he was an atheist and he didn't believe in God as such. What about you? What was your position?
Well, I think as I grew up, I really enjoyed going to the church and just the things that we did. You know, they'd have day trips out. You know, we'd have study circles, which involved studying about Jesus and all kinds of different things like that. Played the guitar at the church, so for me I was quite involved in all that, and I always took I guess a lot of self-esteem and a lot of appraisal from all the people in the community for doing that, which was really nice. So I felt that I leaned towards the church and faith as I was growing up anyway.
So did you have a firm belief in God at that age, would you say?
I wouldn't say it was a firm belief. I'd say I would say I was more exploring my own faith at that point.
And what age was this?
We're talking about 13, 14 now. And bearing in mind, even your friends around you, you know, can be quite verbally atheist.
Of course, yeah.
And to kind of sometimes out some of your own kind of explorations can be frowned upon.
So would you say that you ever turned to God, or was it just something that was in the background and you did go to church and you met friends and you enjoyed the social aspect of the church as well, or was there some sort of belief there somewhere inside you?
I felt that throughout my early teenage days and things like that. Whenever there was a problem for me within inside my life, I would always turn to God. Yeah. Which it felt in the early days, it felt more natural, and it felt like it was the right thing to do. You know, we have confessions and things like that, so you get into a routine of practicing this stuff within inside the Catholic Church. So there was no resistance to doing it at that point in my life, I don't think. But obviously, as I began to develop and grow a little bit older, I began to take on different views and things like that.
So moving on from 13, 14 teenage years, as you were growing older, becoming an adult, becoming a man, what was life like? Which kind of route did you take?
I think the good thing about living in a house with an atheist and a believer is you can choose whichever one you want, or which one suits you at any given moment. And I think as I began to get into, say, my 14s, 15s and 16s at school, I really began to rebel against a lot of things in life. The school was one of them, a Catholic school. It was really strict, and it was quite harsh at times, and also my parents and society. So I really began to take a different route in my life, and I began to do lots of negative things. So in them moments I chose not to choose God, and kind of go with the belief that nothing exists. But even within them moments of the pauses in life that we get, I still return back to God in crisis, and that was the only time that I'd done it. And then I'd move back into the behaviour of kind of self-destruction and things like that. So
going through following your desires and things that suited you, I think you mentioned. I think it's good for you to mention this, especially for our viewers, because there'll be many people out there who are maybe going through the same struggle as you, maybe going through the same pattern of lifestyle as yourself, where they may have some sort of religion in their household, but then there's the side of them which they go towards what they want and their desires, and they, even though a lot of the time you know it might be wrong, but you still go down towards it. So it's nice that you've touched upon that. But moving on from that, so you did go down the route of not such good things in the eyes of God, and where did that take you?
You know, with inside English culture, it's really normal to kind of go out and get girlfriends and party and do all the things that you want to do, really. And I think for me at my time in life, it was something that was really normal to just go to these nightclubs every night. Sorry. Go to the nightclubs every night and go dancing and chasing girls. But that kind of led on to different things for me. It led on to drugs. It led on to really destructive behaviours for me. But I found that once I kind of got into that, I was really unable to come back out of it until the point where I was chasing these things in life. And the more I chased them, the more unhappy I got with myself. And yeah, there was a discontent within inside me.
Yeah, that's very understandable. When you're chasing something for so long, it's difficult to come out of it, and at the same time, you find it difficult to connect. And you, like you said, there's something which was uncomfortable inside you. Yeah,
I think when you're a teenager, but you know, you don't see the consequence sometimes of the actions that you take. And before you know it, we're chasing the things in life, or certainly I was, that I thought would make me whole in some way. So it would usually be women was the top one. The second one was drink or drugs, and the next, you know, it'd move on, and it'd move on. And all the time that you're living like that, or that I was living like that, I was seeking fulfillment, and I didn't ever really realise it. But the more I was to seek that fulfillment in life, the worse and worse that I became spiritually and as a human being. But even within them moments, like I know I keep saying it, but I had to keep stopping at the moments of real stress, real anguish, and I'd return back to the church to try and reconnect, or try and put myself back on some kind of right path, and it would work for 2 days.
Yeah, I can understand.
And then them desires come back in again, which I perceived as really normal at that age, and I think that was part of the battle, is something that's deemed normal in society like that.
So while you're going through these kind of, it seems like an internal kind of struggle or an internal battle in a way, because one side of the coin is the side where you want to go down the route of enjoyment and doing things that you enjoy, even though you know they're not the best things in life, because then at the same time, on the other side of the coin, you're going to the church and you're maybe making a confession, speaking to somebody there. Was there anyone at this point in your life trying to guide you, trying to give you some sort of structure in your life, maybe saying this is not good, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, maybe a family member, maybe somebody from the church? Was there anybody in your life doing this?
Many people. That's the honest answer. Many people tried to tell me the path that I was on in life, whether it be from people who really mean well at the church, or mostly my parents, you know, just because they were my family unit, brothers and sisters. But for me, I couldn't hear them in them kind of lusts and wants, the desires. I didn't want to hear what they had to say. I just wanted to chase what I wanted to chase with inside life, and again, that's where the problems came. So I was surrounded by people that cared and tried to help, but I just don't think I was ready to listen or hear them at that point.
So for somebody who may be going through what you went through, what kind of advice would you give for somebody who's maybe going through a journey? And I know each person is different individually, but looking back, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's doing things that they know are wrong, and they are getting advice from loved ones, from strangers in the street, from people in the mosques or in the churches, trying to guide them on the correct path, but it doesn't seem to kind of go through? What would you say?
I think just have some willingness to be open to what's being said. I know from my own experience, I realise now on reflection, you know, I was in a lot of ego and I had no humility, and I think that was part of the problem. So, yeah, I think it'd be very simple. Just be willing to consider what somebody's offering you.
I think that's a very real answer, because some people say, no, just listen to what they're saying. But when you're in that situation, as you were, it's difficult to just absorb what people are saying. So I think a very good advice that you've given is to be open-minded enough to say, well, there could be an alternative.
Yeah.
Okay, coming back to your story. So at this point in your life, you were 16, 17, 18 maybe, and you're doing things which are not the best things for yourself as a person in terms of towards your end goal. What was it that kind of put that spark inside you, or kind of ignited that flame inside you, which kind of attracted you mainly either towards God or towards, obviously, Islam in the end? What was it that you can maybe recall?
Well, I think I've thought about this a lot, and it was a series of events more than anything else. It didn't just happen. It wasn't I hold him close to my heart because he's the first kind of Muslim guy that I really had any real interaction with inside my life. And he invited me in one day to his house, and he said, I'm really busy, I'm praying. He said, but you can come in and you can sit by the window and you can wait for me to pray.
Fantastic. That was the first interaction with a Muslim person. And I guess that could have been...
It wasn't my first interaction with a Muslim person. I'd had lots of interactions with Muslim people before, but it was the first time that I'd had real kind of engaging conversation with a Muslim person.
Fantastic. What I'm going to have to do is stop you there halfway through your story. I do apologise, but inshallah we'll come back, and we hope you can join us in the second part of the programme. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for joining us for part 2 of today's episode of My Journey Through Islam with Tayyib Marshall. So Tayyib, moving on through your story, we've come to the point where you have now made a friend, or you have a friend called Munir who's from Asian background. He's invited you into his house, and he mentions prayer, and I guess that's maybe the introduction to an Islamic kind of practice to yourself. So what happened from there?
Yeah, well, I went into his house and he was praying, and it felt like I was there a long time. But the longer I sat there and I observed Munir praying, the more I began to question the way that I was praying with inside church. Because when I was inside church, I knew that it felt really good to be connected to God and to be on my knees in submission. But when Munir got up off that prayer mat that day and he said, okay, I'm ready, there was a real light that shone in his face. And I looked at him and I thought, wow, I just thought I need to find out more about his prayers, what he's doing, and just the peace and the serenity that I say. And I thought, I've got to find out about this.
I think this is something what most people look for in life in general, is that peace, isn't it? That sukoon or sakina that people want, they look for in their life, which is that internal peace. And sometimes, you know, in Islam we talk about it and we say you can see that the person's got nur on their face, or they've got light on their face. And we're not talking about skin colour here, we're talking about something which we can't really explain. And it seems like you saw that there on your friend's face that day. Alhamdulillah. And I guess this was the start. So your interaction with this brother, where did that lead you, moving on with your story?
Well, where that left me with Munir was really reflecting on my own process within inside the church, and I just began to really think about my own process within inside that, and I found I'd go to church once a week, and if not, it had only been for a couple of months. For me, that was devotedly, and I'd experienced some kind of harmony within inside myself for a day, and leave the church really uplifted and really positive. Munir, I witnessed like that every day for long periods, and it was because 5 times a day he was praying, and it just really led me to begin to ask questions from Munir, and he began to tell me first and most foremost is that the word Allah was a translation for God, And he then began to tell me that the Quran was a part of a story after the Bible, and the Quran brought it to an end and a completion. And the minute he said that to me, it just made me more curious, and it made me more interested to find out what was inside this book. And I did. I asked him if I could borrow a Quran, and he brought me a Quran. And before he gave me the book, he said, "You can't read this book without washing. You cannot touch this book without washing." And again, just these little things. I thought, why? Why can't I just, I'll go and read it, I'll bring it back tomorrow. And he began to explain the reasons and the importance of washing.
Lots of people, I believe, can relate to your journey and your story. And so when you had these questions, did you ever go to, for example, the church and ask about, you said, well, why am I not doing this with the Bible, or why am I not praying 5 times a day?
No.
Did you never go to anybody and ask, or did you just these questions within yourself?
These questions were inside myself. I'd had years and years and years within inside the church, so I felt like I kind of knew inside out the reasons why we were doing things. And I remember as a child in school and things like that, if you were asked a question, it was said, that's because it's here and it's like this. But I always was left with more questions from that, whether it be, why are we giving confession to the priest? And as a child I could kind of understand that, but I always had a real resistance, and I always wondered, why can that man tell me that I've got to go and sit down and do 5 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers for something that I've done inside my life, when I thought it was between me and God. So just having them kinds of questions and coming back onto Islam, the more and more I looked into Islam, it felt like the message was more clear. If I had any more questions, I could just ask and ask and ask, and I would always be given answers. And I think that for me was really important, and that's what Mujahid did. Is if I had a question, he would answer it, and I'd go away and I'd think about it, and I'd ask him, why can't we eat pork? And we relate back to the Bible, and he'd tell me more things from the Bible than I knew, and I thought, wow, this is great.
The questions that you had in your life that you were searching for, you seem to be getting these answers from this introduction with one person from the Muslim faith, and it seems like you really were trying to move forward with this. So what happened from there? What brought you from that stage to, for example, up to accepting Islam initially?
Again, I've got Munir and his family helped me break down so many different stereotypes where Islam was concerned, because I had one image of it within inside my mind that for every Asian person or every Arab, or that was the version that I had in my mind. It was because that was what was taught. When I was interacting with Munir and his family, they would always do little things like when I went there, they would always make an effort to make sure that I had some food or some drink, and they would begin to tell me that these were the teachings of Muhammad. I thought, oh wow. And they always modelled something that I thought was great, but they modelled what I didn't see other people modelling from my own church that I was going to. They'd model it for that day, and then on the Monday they'd be out drinking and things like that. So the more and more I went through this, that wasn't matching up for me with inside Christianity or with the Bible. And I just knew that Islam was the faith that I was more leaning towards. I didn't take my Shahada straight away. What happened was, over a couple of years of researching and reading and going back and asking questions, I began to think that Islam was for me, and maybe I should take this step. But I was more frightened of what people would think if I'd done that, being an English person.
And we seem to fast forward a little bit, but what was your lifestyle like at this point? I mean, the last time I asked you about what you were doing, there were not good things, and you was involved in drugs and so on and so forth. But by this point, had you changed your behaviour, your attitude, your outlook on life? My
life was changing. It was changing. It was beginning to get more positive. I had more positive people inside my life, definitely, and I think that was just as a result of the research and the interactions that I was having with different people.
Yeah, so it seems like you're interested in Islam, but you just mentioned you were more worried about what people might think, your family, your friends, those who you grew up with. Of course, if you're around people who all you've done is things which you look back on now and think they were not good things, and they were your friends or they were your group, of course you're going to worry about what they may think. And I guess again, linking back to our viewers, hopefully, who some of them who may be watching thinking, you know what, I'm going through this journey, I'm worried about what people might think, I'm worried what my friends might say if I start to lean more towards being a practicing Muslim or a Muslim in general. So what happened with your story?
Well, what happened is I was a fake Muslim for 2 years, if you want to say for better words. What happened is when Munir said to me I need to wash before I read the Quran, I began to wash before I went to church. I then began to stop eating pork. I then began to do wuzu before I went to bed and when I woke on the morning and things like that. And I'd completely stopped drinking alcohol in about 21, so that wasn't really an issue for me. So what I found is that I was going to church, having all the rituals of a Muslim, but almost being a practicing Catholic. And I think for me, before I knew it, I was already Muslim, and I fought with it inside myself for a long time, because I just wondered how the parents were going to take it, how the family were going to take it. And I'd said to our mum one day, I said to her that, you know, this is my thinking. I'm really leaning towards going to the mosque and speaking to the imam. And she said to me, don't do that, you know, you'll end up doing something crazy. I've seen it on the news, all these people doing it. And it was such an angry but hurt reaction to what I'd said. I didn't say anything else about it for a long time. A short period of time went past and I knew within my heart that I was going to go to the mosque and I was going to take my shahada, because I knew, even though I was going to the church within my heart, I was Muslim. So that's what I did. And I went to the mosque. I took my shahada, and within a year, I told my mum. So there was a reason why I told her 3 years, because of the fear and the hostility that she held within inside her heart, of what she thought I would become by becoming Muslim. And I think what I wanted to demonstrate to her is that I was still the same person. In fact, I was a better person, and that I'm living a good life, a clean life, a healthy life. And when I went back and presented it to her, she said to me, I already knew you were Muslim.
So you've accepted Islam now, and your mother, you haven't told her for a whole year, and then you've mentioned to her that you're a Muslim, and she's taken it quite positively in a way that she's been supportive, but at the same time there's not much mention of Islam in your household. The
transformation within inside my life that I'd already made at that point, compared to the person that was really destroying himself.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? It's the fact that Islam came into your life and it's made you a better person. It doesn't mean that when you accept Islam or you embrace Islam, even if you're already a Muslim and you start to become practicing Muslim, it doesn't mean that you have completely changed, you're not the same person. It just means that you're a better person. What I'm going to have to do there, my dear brother, is I'm going to have to stop you, inshallah. But we hope that you can join us again, and we hope that you, the viewers, will be able to join us again for another episode of Tayyib Marshall's story. And we thank you for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.